What's up, Generation GC fam? Welcome to episode 18 of Generation GC, A New Beginning, from The Young and the Hopeless, and my guest this week is Daniel Anton, the vocalist and bassist of the band Sorry Ghost. Last week, we talked about Waldorf Worldwide from the album Good Charlotte, and next week, we'll be talking about a song from the Chronicles of Life and Death. Now, a little bit more about Sorry Ghost, since you might not be familiar with them. Sorry Ghost formed in 2018 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, although the members don't all live there currently. They are an alternative pop-punk trio. Daniel is joined by Matthew Polito on vocals and guitar, and Tyler Hernandez on drums. They just released their album the morning after, and it is seriously so freaking catchy. It's also probably going to leave you thinking about your feelings quite a bit. I've had it on repeat ever since I heard it this spring, and it is just seriously making me miss shows, because there's a couple of songs that I'm like, man, I just wish I could be coming out of pit retirement and moshing to this. I've heard their shows are pretty awesome and super energetic, although I have not gotten to see Sorry Ghost myself. On a different note, this is not related to Sorry Ghost, but just about things in general. I wanted to say that I have been pretty angry lately. I am a woman that works in the music industry, and that means that I've faced a lot of bullshit. I have faced setbacks and discrimination. I have lost out on opportunities because of my gender. I have had men made me extremely uncomfortable. Nothing is going to hold me back or stop me from doing what I want to do, and nothing has stopped me from doing what I want to do, but it's frustrating, and the past week or so, I have been very, very angry about it. I think I pent up that anger for a while, but I'm letting it out now. It's heartbreaking and sad to see a lot of bands that I think we all thought were good people. Bands that maybe we even looked up to or looked to as an example of good behavior turn out to be abusers, turn out to be rapists, turn out to have harmed and taken advantage of people that they see as having less power than them. I shared a story of my own on the internet a few days ago, and guess what? Anyone who is not a cisgender man that works in the music industry, I can almost guarantee you that they have a story similar to mine. That they have a story of a time when someone made them feel uncomfortable, when someone took advantage of them, when they lost out on an opportunity because of their gender identity and expression. It sucks. And, I remember being told many years ago, sometimes explicitly, sometimes it was a little more, you had to just sort of figure it out for yourself. But there was this message that, you had to just put up with it, and you didn't want to be the one that called someone out, and you didn't want to get a reputation for ruining a band's career. And I am here to say, fuck that. Believe people when they tell you stories of being harmed and taken advantage of. Listen to what they have to say. Support women, support non-binary individuals, support trans men emotionally, and support them at every stage of their career. We don't have to stand for this, and we will not. And as I've been saying the past several weeks, today is a great day to arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. I've linked a petition in the show notes demanding justice on her behalf. I've also linked in the show notes blacklivesmatters.card.co for information on how you can help on the Black Lives Matter anti-police brutality movement. There's info there on protests, info on how you can donate. If you can't donate money, there are videos to watch and playlists to stream where they will donate revenue for you. There's also info on how you can educate yourself, because I think that's something we can all work on. There's petitions to sign, so please sign them and share. Lastly, Generation GC stickers are here. Do you want a sticker? Few things you can do. Number 1, support the show on Anchor. That helps me sustain the show, helps me get the right equipment, microphones, headphones, etc. Also helps me do things like print stickers and get them mailed to you guys. Or you can donate to any organization listed at blacklivesmatter.card.co, or donate PPE to healthcare workers, because that's still an issue. There's still a lot of issues with healthcare workers getting proper PPE. Donate at getusppe.org. I'll link that in this description too. I thought that would be a good way to encourage you all to get involved. So you are going to support the show on Anchor, or you're going to donate to a Black Lives Matter related organization or getusppe.org. Send me a screenshot of your support or donation, as well as your mailing address. You can DM me on Twitter or Instagram, GenerationGCPod, P-O-D, or email generationgcpod@gmail.com, and then I will mail you stickers. I will also occasionally tweet or post on the Instagram story about different ways that y'all can help, whether that's good deeds that you can do or ways to help spread the word about the show. So make sure you're following. That is about it for our intro. Daniel and I have a wonderful conversation for you, so I'm very, very excited to lead right on into episode 18 of Generation GC.
All right, so today we are talking about A New Beginning, which is track 1 on Good Charlotte's. I put the word that it is a seminal album because I really think it is. The Young and the Hopeless. You know, it was their breakout album, their sophomore album.
Right.
I knew a lot of people that would skip this song because they were like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to say fake fans because that feels not fair, but I don't know. To me, it always felt like part of the album, even though
Right.
it is like it is an instrumental track. Although, okay, so there's no words to this song. It
Right.
is, but there's vocals. So can I call it an instrumental, or should I just say it's the intro? What do you think?
Okay, so yes, I think you can get away with calling it instrumental. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's something in between those, but yeah, because it has the vocal sort of like, ooh, you know.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, we'll call it instrumental.
Because they've done every album except for Youth Authority in 2016. They've had an intro track, but all of the other ones had words.
Right.
But like the Chronicles, the intro, Once Upon a Time, the Battle of Life and Death for Chronicles was sung, I think, entirely in Japanese. The other ones in English. But like, you know, Introduction to Cardiology and Good Morning Revival intros, I feel like both of those feel to me more like overtures almost, because they seem to like, especially the Good Morning Revival one. I noted also that this was the only intro they did, like the only intro track they've done that didn't have words.
Right.
But they did have an instrumental interlude on Cardiology. So that had like the intro with words and then an interlude.
Yeah. No, I think also, yeah, I like the way you put it. The others are kind of overtures.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. So the very first thing I did after graduating college 7 years ago was I worked for a circus for a summer. I worked for a circus.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And I'm like trying to remember the circus word that was like the circus equivalent of an overture. And it was like this whole thing, and you had the musical theme at the beginning, and everyone kind of came out clapping and singing, and it was really fun. But yes, fun fact to listeners, I worked for a circus for a couple months, and it was really fun. It was not a circus that used animals. It was all children who were willing participants. It was called Circus Smirkus, and it was very, very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's certainly a fun fact. I didn't know I was talking to a circus legend.
Circus legend, yeah. I was like a basically unpaid intern for a summer. As their PR intern, but like it was really fucking fun. It was right after I graduated college. Like no regrets. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So A New Beginning was played live. I guess this was when Good Charlotte was touring off The Young and the Hopeless. did you get to see them live, like, on that tour?
No, I did not. So I watched both of the videos that you had sent me, and those looked amazing. I did not get to see them on the Young and the Hopeless tour.
Yeah, me neither. I saw them, the first time I saw them, they were touring off Chronicles of Life and Death, so a few years later. So I did not get to see this. And, like, when I saw them, when they were touring off Chronicles, they played Once Upon a Time. I think it was, like, even before their set. Like, I don't think it was really even, like, intro music. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. But, like, I'm watching these videos, and it's so fucking punk. It is so cool. It is, like, I found a version of Dance Floor Anthem where Benji and Joel, I think this was when they were doing The Voice Australia, they did, like, Dance Floor Anthem, I think it was, with, like, a string orchestra, which was so cool.
Yeah.
And, like,
yeah.
I want to see a new beginning. 2022, when it's safe to have concerts, when it's safe to tour again, I want a 20th anniversary tour for this album where they play this song with, like, full orchestra. That's my campaign.
No, I totally agree. Full orchestra. And honestly, I mean, if we're incorporating a full orchestra, why stop there? Maybe even a circus.
Yes, I'll hit up my old circus contacts. No, circus is so cool. Like, I love getting to talk about it because even though it was only like 2.5 months, like, how many people get to say that they literally ran away with the circus after college? And
right.
it was, I mean, kids that are super talented that would go on to train at, like, world-class circus schools and perform in things like Cirque du Soleil. Some of them would start their own shows. I mean, kids that would travel and perform around the world. It was so cool. And then after hours, I'm going on a little circus rant here. But after hours, all of us grown-ups, all of us staff would get to play around on the equipment sometimes. And it would just be really funny because, like, most of us, besides the people who were, like, the coaches, like, the actual people who knew how to do circus stuff, most of us will be like, oh, trapeze, wee!
Yeah. Molly, I'm expecting now that you have, like, sick trapeze moves.
Okay, so, like, not really, no. Like, maybe once upon a time I did gymnastics when I was younger, but had a couple of ACL tears, so, like...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so my skill level has gone down quite a bit. I'm also, like, 28 now, which is old. But let's talk about Sorry Ghost. I want to introduce the band to the world. The world, I say, like, you know, the people that are listening to this podcast. So,
the world.
Yeah, which is the whole world, which is every good Charlotte fan in the whole world ever.
Right.
So, okay, so Daniel, you sing and you play bass.
Correct.
Band also includes your vocalist, guitarist, Matthew, and your drummer, Tyler.
Right.
From what I could pick up on, I read a few other interviews. You guys have done, like, a whole bunch of interviews, so many articles I could find lately, which was awesome.
Yeah, so, that's been shout out to publicist.
Yes.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike is great. We love Mike.
Mike's amazing.
Oh my God, he's so great. I've had a couple of his artists on the show and hope to continue working with him. He's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so from what I could pick up from these articles, seems like you and Matt have been playing together for a few years. You connected with Tyler in 2018.
Yes.
How long? But how long have you been writing music and writing songs and playing shows?
Yeah, so I've been doing this now for a hot minute. I started in high school, right around 16. I picked up a guitar. It was an acoustic guitar, and I just sort of taught myself how to play because I was like, I played trombone my entire life, like in concert band, so I had a very sort of classical foundation. And then I was like, you know what? This is just not a cool enough instrument. 16-year-old me. I was like, I'm gonna get so much more.
Ska was not the thing. Ska was not the thing.
Right. As much as I love ska, I was like, this is not going to help me advance on the social ladder.
Right.
So I threw my trombone to the back burner and picked up guitar. Started my first band in high school called Hot Llamas. R.I.P. Hot Llamas.
That's a great high school band name.
Yeah.
That's if I'm gonna roast you for a second, but if I saw a band called Hot Llamas that was like, guys in their mid-20s, I might be like, but
right.
For like high school, that's great.
Right. No, it really fit, and you're exactly right. Like, it only works between the ages of like 13 and 18 to be in a band called Hot Llamas. But yeah, so I did that, and that was all original music, and that was kind of my foray into writing. We put out an EP, and then we broke up when we all graduated, and they were like, okay, we're going to actually like not do this anymore. And I was like, what? I thought music's something we're going to keep doing. So then I kept on just kind of writing songs, and I knew Matthew previously from high school, but we weren't really close. And then we had a class, actually our freshman year of college, American history together. Mm-hmm. And so I recognized him, I sat next to him, and pretty soon on I was like, hey, I want to start a really loud, fast, like skate punk band. And that was kind of the origins. And we used to be known as Sari, S-A-R-I, like the Indian garb. And again, we were like 18 or 19, right? And then as we got older, pretty much like as soon as we stopped being teenagers, everyone was like, yeah, that's way too problematic. And we were like, yeah, I guess you're right. So we started shifting, and at this time we were still like kind of just like a punk band. And then we got Tyler into the mix in 2018, and that's really when Sorry Ghost, I like to think, sort of became what it is now.
Very cool. And I want to go, and you just put out this awesome new record.
Thank you.
The morning after. I've like had it on repeat. So you put that on the beginning of April. I sent it to a boy on Tinder today because he asked me what music I was listening to, and he goes, "That's too poppy." When I like emo, straight up, yeah, everyone gets to hear my whole life story. He said, "That's too poppy. When I listen to emo, I prefer something like American football where I can just like cry." So I'm like fair. So listeners, if you're looking for something where you can just like sit and cry and mope, The Morning After is probably not the record for you.
Right.
But it's a great record. It's a really fun, like, emo pop punk record. It's super catchy. And if you want to like think about your feelings, but also kind of rock out in your living room or your car right now, I think you'll enjoy it. So the record came out in the beginning of April. I mean, obviously, the world's kind of largely on hold, but what's been going on like in your mind and in the band's world kind of since then?
Yeah, so, and first of all, like a very great, accurate description of the record, much better than I could have done. So yes, just make sure that we're going to stick with that one.
Yes, okay.
And, but yeah, and also I appreciate you sending it to people on Tinder.
Oh,
That's a great marketing tactic.
Spreading the word.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, since then, honestly, it's really been a whirlwind. Like we put out the record and we were kind of done as a band. Like we had been inactive since the last thing we'd done was like May 2019. And at that time I was like, I went off to DC here and I started, getting like a big boy job, and I just was like, okay, I think that's kind of done for us, that side of band and everything. And so then I kind of rallied the guys because we had this entire record has been done since August 2019, and it was literally just sitting on our producer's computer. And I think we were so burnt out and just kind of all personally needed a break. And so we were just like, it was sitting there. So then I reached out to the guys right around like January 2020. So, 5-6 months ago. And I said, guys, we've got to put up this record out. It's like entirely recorded. And basically we were like, okay, yeah, let's just like, I don't know, set a date like April 1st because we like April Fool's Day. And yeah, that was it. Like we didn't do any PR beforehand, and really like
yeah, because
yeah.
I was gonna say like the email I got from Mike was like the day the album came out.
Right. No, yeah, it was like it was already out, and we it was, yeah, not the smartest business move, but again, we didn't really care because we were like, oh, well, we want this to be out. And then it did just way better than I think any of us were expecting. Just
That's
because
so
we,
fun.
yeah, I think, we have incredible fans, and so many people stuck with us when we literally were just inactive for like 8 months, and everyone was like, I'm pretty sure they died, but I guess we'll still see, like, listen to what they're doing. And yeah, it just kind of like took on a life of its own. And then after about a week of it doing well, we just were like getting a couple publications reaching out to us. And I was like, guys, we should really like contact PR. We should get in touch with Mike. And like, I knew of Mike just from, working in the industry for a little bit. And so reached out and is like, Mike, hey, we've already put this thing out. Can you help us out? He's like, yes, let's do a campaign. And yeah, then it coupled with us. I mean, we did, once it was out, I spent the entire month of April sending probably 30 to 40 emails a day of just to anyone relevant who had just possibly listened to it, or, to Spotify playlist curators to just say, hey, I really like your playlist. Would you be interested in checking this out and seeing if it's a good fit? And it all just, it worked. It all kind of paid off. So
love it. Yeah. So there was one really great interview with Melodic Mag that you did. Yes. And by the way, I obviously spent a whole lot of time just like scrolling through. That's usually my go-to, is I go on a band's Twitter and I just like scroll through and I'm like, what articles and interviews and reviews have they like tweeted? Mm-hmm. There was a really great one with Melodic Mag where you describe yourselves as optimistic emo. So what helps you keep your head up when things are rough, such as, obviously right now, but in general, I think. Right.
And I think I'd say that, I just personally, I had kind of been through a lot through the past 2 years. And when I was writing this record, I just knew like, I don't want to throw out cliches, but I knew, okay, it gets better. Everything is temporary. And I just kind of like, to that guy on Tinder's point of where he was like, I want American football. I love American football. I love modern baseball. I love, true like Midwest emo. But at the same time, I just felt like I didn't want it to be sort of one single facet. I wanted it to represent this idea that like, kind of like, truthfully, I mean, I remember taking a lot of inspiration from Neck Deep with Life's Not Out to Get You.
That's a great example. Great example.
And I just remember, I mean, obviously like with December, and I just remember basically that idea where he was like, I miss you, but I wish you well. It was like, I feel this way. However,
yeah.
And I think that's extremely important to remember. And kind of like you said, even obviously in this like abysmal year of 2020, this idea that, everything is truly temporary. And I just even know from a personal note.
Knuckle Puck song? Is that a Knuckle Puck song, that everything is temporary? Am I getting that right?
I think so. Yeah. I think that's right. Yeah. I think, and then I just sort of had enough. I felt like I'd grown in the past 2 years and sort of seen, wow, like I'd made a lot of progress from where I had come from. And just sort of trying to then take that mindset into the future.
That's great. That I think having that awareness of like where you've come from and, that hope for the future is a great thing to have. And I think it ties into a lot of Good Charlotte's music. So I really want to know, Daniel, like, how did you first, or like, when did you first hear Good Charlotte, and how have they influenced your music?
Yeah, so for me, I would say it actually, okay, so yeah, so it's funny because like if I had gone to one of their shows on the Young and the Hopeless tour, I would have been like 6 years old.
Okay.
So for me, yeah, I really first heard about Good Charlotte. I remember this vividly. In 2008, they came to, I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where the band is from, and they came to our little rinky-dink water park called Blue Bayou.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they came.
I want to see Good Charlotte at a fucking water park.
Right? And you could, yeah, we just like, I remember, so at that time, let's see, 2008, I was like 11 or so. Yeah, okay. About 11 years old. And yeah, I just remember like, and they played with Boys Like Girls, and it was like,
that tour. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it was like such a peak 2008 like MySpace era. Like, let's go to the water park and jam out to these bands.
Did you buy merch at that show? Because 2008 band merch was so iconic.
Yeah, it was iconic. You know,
and like neon and like cartoon dinosaurs and shit.
Yeah, it was very like, you know, like LOL XD, so random kind of like.
Except I feel like Good Charlotte's merch at that time, because that would have been right after Good Morning Revival. And like, I remember buying, like, everything for that album was very like, I don't want to say like dark, but like kind of grim, like a lot of gray and like solemn. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that kind of stuck out in the 2008 era of art.
Right.
That's fun though. And I remember like knowing about that tour, but for whatever reason, just not getting to go. But it sounds like it was amazing. Yes. So who have been some of your other influences?
So definitely Good Charlotte, very big one. Honestly, I mean, the entire album of The Young and the Hopeless really was just so influential to me once I hit that age, like 11, 12, 13. And yeah, I mean, outside of them, huge influence, Blink-182. I feel like anyone in this genre owes.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Then for me, I love Taking Back Sunday.
Okay.
And that they were very big influence as well. And then probably Saves the Day, actually, speaking of New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great little variety there. I love all that. And that's, I think those are, this podcast has been really fun because anytime I have an artist on the show, like, you know, the people who listen to my podcast are people who love Good Charlotte. Right. And so when they listen to an artist come on the show, probably the artist is also going to be someone they like, right? So that's been really fun. So last question before we dive into A New Beginning.
Yeah.
So your cover art for this album is so cool. It's
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It is a pancake with eggs and bacon, kind of like, you know, Denny's Grand Slam or something.
Right.
What is your go-to breakfast?
Oh, my go-to breakfast. Okay, so yes, I actually had noticed in your notes, and you're totally right. The inspiration was a Denny's Grand Slam. However, the text, we were like, I don't know.
Waffle House. The text is Waffle House.
It is. The text is Waffle House, and we figured out what the font was, and I hope we don't get a cease and desist letter.
I don't think you will, because I'm wearing a shirt today from the band Secret Stuff, who were a band from Nashville, and it is in Waffle House font. So, like, I think you're probably fine, because I don't think they're the only ones who have done that.
Right.
Really, you're not.
Right. Yeah, because we just were like, you know what? We're from the South. Like, it has to be Waffle House. So, yeah, I mean, my go-to breakfast, it's probably, here's what I do when I go to Waffle House. And this, I would say this is for sure the go-to. I usually get, so I'm a large human and I eat a lot. And so I usually get 2 pancakes, or 2 waffles. So I get 2 waffles, one with chocolate chips and then one with peanut butter.
Oh, okay. I like your thinking.
Yes, and I'll stack those together, and then I will get a triple serving of hash browns topped
Ooh.
with Burt's chili, and then peppered, capped, and smothered.
I love it. I like that.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of Waffle Houses near me. I've also been vegan for several years now.
Okay, yeah.
But I do have a soft spot in my heart for Waffle House because I went to college in the Midwest. And I think that's probably like since I've been vegan. I mean, there's like I make food like that, but vegan versions at home. And there are vegan diners and more places offering those options. But like, honest to God, the thing that I miss most about being vegan is like how easy it would be to get like cheap, delicious, large amounts of breakfast food like that.
Right.
Oh, so great. Okay, so a new beginning. So I had been talking to your publicist. He passed this idea along to you. We were a little back and forth on songs just because of how I kind of structure the show.
Right.
But what made you end up picking A New Beginning?
So I think for me, really there are a lot of reasons here, but it's just so iconic to me of an opener, and in a way it's like the most punk rock opening of all time, because I felt like what they did, and it was so smart, like what a smart tactic they used here, because I'm like, it instantly drew me in, and then of course I double check and I look at the liner and the cover and my album, and I'm like
what?
Yeah, right. And then I listen to the whole thing, and it just seamlessly goes into the anthem, and you're like,
so seamless.
Yeah. And I'm just like, that was such a memorable opener. And I was like, because they did that, and they didn't do what every single other band from 99 to 2008
and start with like a really high energy punk rock song. Yeah.
Right. And just that, I was like, oh, because they went against the grain here, like that's a punk rock move in my book.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think it's such a standout. And that's what I was thinking about as I was, getting ready for this and all, other records I was listening to at that time, and bands I like still to this day love, but, stuff like maybe early Yellow Card, Simple Plan. I was huge on Simple Plan. Still am, I still love Simple Plan.
Right.
This was, I bought this record a little before American Idiot came out. So like I had already, this was before American Idiot came out, but Blink-182, Enema of the State, another iconic record.
Yeah.
But yeah, didn't do this. But having that kind of bold instrumental intro track, I think is super fun.
Yeah.
What normally I would dive into, what the lyrics of the song are about, or talk about some of my favorite lines. But what do you think they were going for when they put this song on the album? Like, what do you think in Benji and Joel Madden and Billy Martin and Paul Thomas's mind? What are like your thoughts on why they put this on the album?
So, I know that from kind of good Charlotte research that I've done over the years and whatnot, that the band, they were big fans, and I'm sure they still are, but at the time they were listening to Danny Elfman.
Yeah.
And I forgot who said, it might have been Eric Valentine, I think.
It was Eric Valentine, yes.
Yes. And he was like, yeah, the band would be, like driving around DC, hanging out or whatever. And he was just like, they put this on, and it's what they'd hang out to, what they'd kind of jam to. And I think he was a big push for them, a big proponent of like, you guys should totally kind of embrace this. It's an influence. And that's kind of what I think.
That's okay. So I have done so much Good Charlotte research over the years. So much. Okay. I'm not new to this band, guys. I even long before I started this podcast, I read so many interviews. I spent so much time on like fan sites and message boards and reading everything I could about them, but I somehow did not know that about the Danny Elfman soundtracks and how Eric Valentine really pushed them until like recently, like this weekend, getting ready for this episode. You know, I guess I don't know everything about this band. I know a lot, but I don't know everything.
Right. But
yeah, so I found this Q&A with Eric Valentine on, I just have to mention the website, sluts.com.
I know of them, yes, yeah.
And yeah, Eric Valentine just talks about going to DC to hang out with them, and the Edward Scissorhands soundtrack is in the car. Right. I remember from, you know, just my world of Good Charlotte fandom in the early to mid 2000s and emo and pop punk fandom in general in the early to mid 2000s. I remember that a lot of people talked about movies like Nightmare Before Christmas and Edward Scissorhands, but I had not. I never saw them. Yeah. Here's a Molly fact for everyone is that, like, so I got Movie Pass a couple years ago when that was a thing.
When it was a thing, yeah.
When that was a thing. And I had Movie Pass for like a year and a half. For like 8 months. And then I switched to AMC A-List, which was like fantastic. But, you know, currently I don't really get to go see the movies. But before like January 2018, I like never went to the movies. And I just like, I had like a small rotation of VHSs and DVDs. And aside from like Harry Potter and Twilight, I like did not almost ever see new movies. So
interesting. Okay.
So there's like all these iconic films.
Yeah.
I haven't seen. But let's talk about Danny Elfman a bit. So for anyone listening, I am going into this assuming that anyone listening has as much knowledge as I did, which was, you know, not that much. So if probably you have seen a movie that Danny Elfman has scored. If you're listening to this podcast, you've probably seen one, if not several movies that Danny Elfman has scored. So Danny Elfman was first the singer of Oingo Boingo in the 1980s, but he's since become famous for film scores and soundtracks, famously known for a lot of Tim Burton movies like Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, Sleepy Hollow, Big Fish, Alice in Wonderland, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Nightmare Before Christmas. He also did all 3 50 Shades films, which
I was going to say, you got to mention that.
Yep, I've seen those. He's done comic franchises, Hulk, Avengers, Age of Ultron, and Spider-Man. And he's also done for TV, like everything from Simpsons to Desperate Housewives. So Daniel, like what is your familiarity with Danny Elfman's soundtracks and all these movies I'm talking about? Specifically, the 2 that seem to really come up are Edward Scissorhands and Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right. So I obviously, like, I knew his work just because I would listen to it in these movies. But what I did not know and what I learned today from doing a quick 5-minute research before was that he was the lead or the singer and songwriter for Oingo Boingo. Yeah. And I was like, oh my goodness, this all makes sense. This man, what doesn't he do? Right. And but yeah, so I'm pretty familiar with, obviously, with his scores and with the music he's contributed, but also I recognize, like you said, he's even written stuff for Desperate Housewives and The Simpsons, so I'm sure I've heard it in other places and not even realized, it's him again.
Yeah. I mean, I'm reading about him. And, you know, of course, you kind of first see like, oh, he's done all these Tim Burton films. Mm-hmm. And then you see like Men in Black and 50 Shades and Simpsons. Have you seen Nightmare Before Christmas and Edward Scissorhands?
Yes. Now, for both, it has been a long time. Right. Probably 8 or 9 years.
So I listened to both of those soundtracks getting ready for this podcast, and like, yo, if you listening to this are like me and you did not know any of this about kind of where A New Beginning came from, go listen to Nightmare Before Christmas and Edward Scissorhands, but especially the Edward Scissorhands soundtrack.
Yeah.
Because I put that on and I was like, oh, they just, like, I literally was like, oh, they, like, just spliced stuff from the Edward Scissorhands soundtrack into, you know, a little under 2 minutes.
Right.
Like,
right.
It very much sounds like that.
Yeah, it definitely contextualizes it.
Yeah. Oh, completely. And I like sort of know a little about what Edward Scissorhands is about. Nightmare Before Christmas, I have a slightly better idea of what it's about, but I feel like everyone needs to hear what I have in my notes is that since I have not seen either of those movies, I feel like I am a bit of a fake emo or fake goth.
Right. You're a poser.
Yes, I am a poser. The 11-year-old Molly's biggest fear that I'm a poser. I missed out on a key part of emo and goth culture. I'm sorry. To my credit, I love the movie Big Fish, which Danny Elfman also scored.
Yeah.
The great movie. I've seen that a few times.
Okay, that gets you some points back.
Some points, but that's not a goth movie. That's not an
No. That's like indie.
Even though Yellow Card made a song inspired by Big Fish is not an emo movie.
No.
I would love, in like whatever way, obviously it's been a few years, like how do you feel like Nightmare Before Christmas and Edward Scissorhands connects to emo and goth culture from someone who's actually seen the iconic films?
Okay, yeah. Also, I gotta dig back into my 13-year-old brain. And I know, I'm sure part of it was I was 13 and all of my like friends in that scene were like,
so deep.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa, this is so deep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of that idea of like, I don't know. I mean, it's not necessarily like, because it sounds like, I don't know, kind of derisive to use the term outcast, but I think in both, there's that like very sort of prominent outcast style character, kind of on the fringes, on the margins. And to me, that's like, I mean, that's being emo in a nutshell.
And definitely ties into a lot of what I think this record it's about is just feeling pretty left out, and not even left out so much as like an outsider, because I think those are separate things. Like I think feeling left out is feeling sad that you are not part of the group or included or accepted, and being an outsider is like not being part of the group, but it's not necessarily like feeling sad about it. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, no, it does. I mean, almost kind of like I think a badge of honor.
Yes. And I think that's like, I mean, to me, why I definitely like gravitated towards this record and Good Charlotte. And I think why a lot of people did. And like, I feel like I need to go watch Edward Scissorhands and Nightmare Before Christmas and like do an addendum to this podcast now, or a follow-up. But I remember like hearing this record and thinking that it was so badass that they started it with this like kind of orchestral piece with like strings, and then it's right into this like heavy punk rock kind of chaos, and just thinking that was really badass. But I remember at first thinking, I don't really know how that fits with the rest of the album. But, you know, thinking more about these movies we're talking about, and I think a lot of those kind of creepy, eerie movies fit with the vibe of a lot of this album, even if some of the musical themes don't translate. Yeah. I mean, thinking about like the goth outsider kind of feeling, especially I think of My Bloody Valentine. So
yeah.
my 2020 thought is that yes, this intro makes perfect sense on this album.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. Right. And I think in a way it's like, yeah, I'm not sure if teenage me would have really gotten it or like put it together. And I think you're right. Like 2020 me is like, oh, as you know, as a learned scholar here, of course.
Right. Teenage me, I mean, 11 years old, I was like doing gymnastics and, you know, then later that transitioned to like dance more. I remember thinking that this would be really cool music for like a gymnastics routine or a dance solo, just the way it starts all slow and kind of eerie and builds the tension, and then there's this like intense chaos, and I'm like, oh yeah, that could be like a turn sequence or like a whole bunch of tumbling, like that'd be so cool. As you know, aforementioned knee injuries mean that, you know, there is no longer any tumbling in my life, nor has there been for many years. But you know, that would be cool, and I would absolutely love seeing any gymnast compete to this. Although I think it's a little short for a gymnastics floor routine, because I think those are like 2.5 minutes, and this is like just under 2 minutes. Yeah.
And actually, kind of what you said, I feel like here's an untapped market out there for anyone that's listening and is like, what sort of genre could I possibly pioneer? And you're right. It's like, what if Good Charlotte had kind of continued that theme of like blending punk rock with these Danny Elfman style scores? There could be an entire album of this that someone who's much more musically inclined than I am could write. But yeah.
Well, and then you could have a whole ballet. That album.
Yeah.
That would be very cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about film scores in general. I mean, are you like a film buff? Are you like into movies?
I have to be honest. I'm actually not really a film buff. Like I like movies, but it's never really been something I was like into.
Right. So I should say, when I say that like I have AMC A-list and like I see movies all the time, y'all, I am not a film buff. Like I don't see like the Oscar-winning movies and stuff. I tend to see a lot of like rom-coms, or I'll see anything about music or anything that just looks really weird. I tend to see a lot of dumb movies. So
yes. Okay. I'm actually like so similar to that.
Awesome.
The true film buff in our band is Matthew, our guitarist. Like Matt, he you know, every year has like an Oscar watch party, and I'm like, Matt, have you seen this obscure film? He's like, oh, of course I saw it before anyone else. And yeah, and he's very much like, you know, oh, I can tell you like French new wave film.
I've been to one Oscar party in my life, and that was, I think, my sophomore year of college. But it was also a Hannah Montana series finale watch party, because that was the same night. So, and it was, you know, it was like only like one of my friends on campus had cable. So,
right. We're on the same level then.
Yeah, cool. I like that. Okay. So, if you / Sorry Ghost, you know, were hired to score a film, what kind of film would this be?
So it would probably be what we've actually gotten in the past after playing live is we have two things. We've gotten, if it's a video game, we get Tony Hawk Pro Skater over and over again.
Yeah, of course.
Right. But movie, we've gotten a couple times. We've gotten either American Pie or Euro Trip.
Okay. Yeah. I can see both of those quite well. Yeah.
And I would be thrilled to like, I love just like kind of harmless teen movies like that. And I mean, that would be incredible to be like, hey, we're writing for some, you know, movie made in the 2020s that's now a teen movie.
Yeah. Well, and Good Charlotte even got to be in the parody film Not Another Teen Movie.
Oh yeah.
So maybe there will be a podcast about that at some point.
Yeah.
No, I love teen movies and teen books. And I was talking about it with a friend of mine recently, that like what a lot of those like teen and young adult, both films and books, what they have in common that a lot of quote unquote grown-up media doesn't have is that you get to see a lot of growth and development in characters that you don't necessarily get to see when it's a quote unquote grown-up movie.
Right. That's a good point.
So I am a big fan of these like teen and coming of age movies. There was a really great movie on Netflix that came out, I think it was a few weeks ago, called The Half of It. Highly recommend it. Absolutely loved it. Super cute.
Cool. I'll check that out.
Yes, I highly recommend it. I want to talk about the title of this song. This song is called A New Beginning. What are they going for?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in my like infinitely optimistic views, I'm going to think that it is sort of what I try to write about and what I like to see in music is this idea of, just like a new beginning, whatever that means to you. If that means promise of a new day, promise of greater adventure, of growth, of anything. And I mean, that's what I would like to think Good Charlotte was going for here. I mean, I think they knew, I'm sure that they had to know that this record was about to hit. You know, they'd been getting, they were starting to break into the mainstream, and I don't know if they predicted the success.
I kind of feel like they didn't, just because the first record did not, the first record did not blow up like this.
No, it did not do that.
First record is great, but the first record did not blow up like nearly as well as this one has. Right.
No, yeah, this one, I again, in my 5 minutes of research before this, I didn't realize this album, The Young and the Hopeless, has sold over 5 million copies worldwide, which is huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. That it was like a New York Times crossword clue several years back.
Oh.
Of like how many copies it sold. And my dad, who does the podcast, sorry, not the podcast, my dad who
This is actually Molly's dad, everyone. Surprise.
But my dad came to that show on Chronicles with me. I mean, my dad has seen Good Charlotte, a few times.
Yeah, a cool dad.
Being that he was the one with the vehicle when I was 13.
Right.
But no, he texted me a couple years ago, and he was like, "Oh, Good Charlotte was a clue in the New York Times today. I didn't know that album had sold so many copies."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Fuck yeah, it did. Fuck yeah, it did."
Yeah. So you're right. They actually probably did not expect that level of success in any way, and so maybe that really was then their idea of like, well, whatever, like this is a new beginning for us, and we're gonna put this album out and hope for the best, and obviously it worked. It paid off.
Right. I mean, they signed to a major label for the first album. And the first album, they toured a bunch and they did Warped Tour and such, but they didn't blow up. I think I'll make sure to link this interview in the comments, because this was a great interview that I've cited on other episodes of the show, but it was with a site called Black Velvet Magazine. The interview was done with Joel a little bit after The Young and the Hopeless came out, and they go this interview goes so far into depth on just so many songs on this album, which is really cool.
Oh, that is cool.
It's really cool. Yeah, it's a great read. But this interviewer asks, so is this album a new beginning, or is it a continuation from your debut and another step down the Good Charlotte road? And Joel says, definitely another step in the path for us, but it's definitely a new beginning for a lot of things for our band. That's how we do things. We start over a lot. We learn a lot as we go. The album was definitely a fresh start for us, but just another step in the path of where we're going, wherever that is.
Oh, aptly put.
Yeah. And I think, obviously it goes a lot off of what you have been saying too. And I feel like it is a band that's like excited to kind of just try something new, see how it goes.
Right.
But maybe not a band that expects how massive this record is going to be, which is really cool.
Right. And I actually think if you're in a band and you're expecting your record to be massive, like it's probably not going to be genuine or good.
Yeah. Well, expectations are tough. I think in anything that you do, having expectations of, okay, this is going to be the thing that just like blows up. Or this internship will be the one that just gets me in the door for any job I ever want, Like, and anytime you have those, like, and I've definitely dealt with this a lot, where I thought I had something that was, like, totally, like, the key, right? Like, and then, like, oh, I've got it. And, like, everything's going to work out now. Life, my friends, is not so simple. So
Right.
You cannot have... You just really can't have, you can have hopes, and I think you should have hopes, and you should have goals, but I think when it turns into, like, I hope I don't sound like super cynical here, but I think when it turns into just expectations, that's when I think you can kind of, in a way, fall lax, because that's when you're like, okay, well, like, I got this, I don't need to try anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, what's, if not the best example right here, you thought that you were going to be a famous performer in the circus, got your internship. Next thing you know, Ringling Brothers cancels the circus.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that or more, I think even akin to like personal life is thinking I would be dancing and doing gymnastics and like cheerleading for years and years, and then like knee surgery after knee surgery.
Right.
But needing like an extracurricular in college is ultimately what pushed me to like get involved in music stuff. So it all worked out. It all worked out.
Yeah. No, and I think, things like that, things work out if you're open to them working out in the way that you didn't expect, in the way that life just decided to screw up your entire plans every time, like it likes to do. And then, if you are like, you know what, this is now the way that this is working out, and I'm going to roll with it. And it really does just, you kind of gotta like strap in for the journey.
Yeah. You have to strap in and like be open to things and be willing to be creative and maybe do something someone else hasn't done before. But life we're getting a little meta here and I love it. But no, it's fun, and it's, I feel like I talk about this all the time, but I definitely was not stoked about this whole quarantine and such. I don't think any of us are, but I had this idea for the podcast, and then I was like, now seems like a pretty good time to get it started. Yeah. And here we are. And here we are. And look at that. Yeah. So Daniel, you know what? Before we wrap up, I realized I have one other like quote that I want to read. From punktastic.com. The article was called Growing Up with Good Charlotte, 15 Years of the Young and the Hopeless. So I'll link this one too, because it's very, very heartfelt, and I think that anyone who loves this record will be like, oh, that's so great. What makes this album so special to us and so many others? Now it's nostalgia. Back then, it was the soundtrack to us growing up. As we grew in maturity and intensity on the cusp of teenagehood, so did the music we listened to. Gone was the carefree skater punk, replaced with brooding, determined self-reflection right from the twinkling Nightmare Before Christmas-esque opening of A New Beginning.
Wow.
That's like so well put.
That's some, was this was punktastic?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm expecting like a Nobel Prize for them in literature.
Yeah, no, this Nobel Prize in literature, and I think, we've talked a bit on this show of how often critics do not like Good Charlotte. And, I like to read interviews, reviews in pretty much every episode. And there have been a handful where it's like, you can read this review and you can just tell that the writer, like, is really trying to restrain themselves from liking Good Charlotte.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a music writer who, even aside from Good Charlotte, like, I am not apologetic about what I like. If I love a band, I fucking love that band, and everyone's gonna know, and everyone is gonna know all of my feelings about that band, and that's just how I exist, right?
Right.
And I feel like this person who wrote this Punktastic article is on that same wavelength, right? Like, this is not a person who is, like, shy about what they love. This is a person that has probably spun this record a couple thousand times over the 15 years and, really, really loves it. So, very well put, Punktastic.
Yes. Good from Punktastic.
I love it. So, Daniel, how has this song held up for you over time?
I think we kind of touched on it earlier, but it's held up exactly, and again, to put it in a less eloquent way than Punktastic did. But yeah, like, hearing it for the first time when I'm in 5th, 6th grade, it didn't mean that much to me. It's kind of like you said, like, oh, it was probably like I played soccer my whole life, and like, oh, this would be good to practice soccer too, or
right.
Like in your case, there could be a dance routine to this. And I find, kind of with just as we get older and inevitably or hopefully as we mature, then it just now to me holds up in that sense of, I kind of critically respect what they did, and I recognize, like, this was a bold move, and it was in a lot of ways a risky move to sort of break the status quo. I mean, this was risky, and I think that's now I sort of approach that with a level of just respectability, and I admire that, and I kind of hope to do that both in the music that I write and just kind of in life as you live, kind of remembering, take that risk and maybe push it to see where you can go.
Yeah. I to put it a little less eloquently than you have said, it's I think it's like being when you're a little kid, when you're young, it's like, oh, this is cool. It's kind of sad. It's kind of angry. And then you grow up and you in your case, become a musician. In my case, write about music and work in the industry full time. And you're like, okay, now I'm qualified to say that this is good. Now I have the qualifications to say that this is good. So yeah, it's good. Listen to me. I feel like in 10, I am not very knowledgeable about BTS, so I don't want to like, I really just don't know much about that world, but the little that I know, I think is so cool. And the K-pop fandom, I think, is going to have such a revolution in like 10, 15 years when the girls who are like young teenagers are the ones running music outlets.
Yeah.
There's going to be like a huge critical kind of uprising and newfound love of K-pop. And I think that's going to be so great. And there's definitely people writing about K-pop now, but I feel like we're going to get like another wave when the people who are the fans now, when they're old enough to be the ones in the industry, when they're that age, I think we're going to see another wave.
Yeah, that's a very solid prediction. I think I'm curious to see if that's going to be accurate, but I feel like it will be. Yeah.
I hope so. I don't know. BTS their tour got rescheduled to 2021, but if I can score cheap seats, I may go. If I can find cheap seats, but who knows?
Right.
Because I think that would be just such a spectacle, and it would be like it's just such an awesome time.
Yeah.
So Daniel, do you have any last words about A New Beginning, about Good Charlotte, about Sorry Ghost, or about yourself?
Let's see. Maybe if I can try to like off the cusp here, just wrap them all up in one. Okay, so I personally always try to have a new beginning, and I'm inspired by what Good Charlotte has done in the industry and as people, and what the twins have done as far as producing kind of up and coming bands, and Sorry Ghost as a band and as kind of an up and coming band.
I mean, you kind of had that new beginning.
Yes, I think that we've sort of had it, and that I hope we will continue to have it. And as Joel said, just sort of, it's a step in our journey. So that's what I would like to say here.
I love that. Daniel, thank you so much. So before we go, I have started a Generation GC and Friends Spotify playlist where we're putting the songs that we covered on the show, plus some songs from our guests and recommendations. So can you give me one Sorry Ghost song that you think I should add to this playlist? And then just give me one other music recommendation. That's, not Sorry Ghost and not Good Charlotte, anything else.
Okay. All right. So I'd say for our track, I mean, it's the one that did the best off the record, but I think it really does encapsulate kind of who we are now as a band. Nosedive.
Okay. Yeah, that would have been my pick, I think.
Yeah, it is definitely, I think it's one of the best songs I think we've written.
I love it.
So Nosedive, and then another recommendation. I like. Okay, actually, so we just signed with a management agency like a week ago, and we're with 3 other amazing bands, and a band that I've really been listening to. They only have a single out, like. They have a couple stuff, but like going forward, this is really what they've been pushing with their new sound. A band called Never Coming Home.
Okay.
And
what's the song called?
It is called, oh gosh, it's such a long title, but it's oh man, it's like you broke me and I'm not ready to laugh about it yet. I think is the let me just look it up now.
That's like some 2006 like early My Chem or early Panic at the Disco kind of song title, and I love it.
Yes, it definitely. Okay, you crushed me, and I'm not ready to laugh about it.
Ooh, okay. I like the song title. I'm intrigued. I'm definitely gonna put that on there.
Yes, they. I like them a lot. So yeah, that I've been listening to that lately.
I love that. Awesome, Daniel. Thank you so much. Listeners, last week we talked about Waldorf Worldwide from Good Charlotte's self-titled album. Next week we'll be talking about a song from the Chronicles of Life and Death. Daniel, where can people keep up with the band on the internet?
Yeah, so obviously on all of our socials, we are at Sorry Ghost Band on Instagram, Twitter. No one uses Facebook anymore, but those, and then we just made a TikTok.
Yes! Oh my god! I love TikTok. That's been my quarantine vice is TikTok.
Yeah, we were kind of dragging our feet, but I recognize that it needs to be done. And so yeah, we are at Sorry Ghost Band there. We have we just made the account literally like 2 nights ago. So
so you're kind of like feeling it out and singing like what's right now.
Yeah. But yeah, and otherwise we're on, all the streaming sites, all the traditional ones, and I just want to thank you so much, Molly, for having me on. It's been a ton of fun, and I really appreciate that.
This has been so great. Daniel, thank you for coming on the show. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you. And I know I say this every time, but I really mean it. Thank you so much for all of the continued engagement about the show on social media. I love talking about Good Charlotte. So please, if you like the show, if you are listening, keep up on social media at Generation GC Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can also find me, Molly, at Hudelson, MHUDELSON. And also make sure to please subscribe to the show on iTunes, leave a review, and most importantly, y'all share it with your friends. Share it with your friends that like Good Charlotte, or share it with your friends that don't like Good Charlotte yet, but you think they will if they know more about them. Yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and thanks again, Daniel, for coming on the show.
Yes, of course. And yeah, thank you again. And that's right, everyone, keep on tuning in. Molly's doing cool things.
Yay! Thank you so much, Daniel.
Yeah, no problem.